Mere mortality, the reflection of good and evil and beauty. Starting off with the trope of associating beauty with goodness and ugliness with evil is a recurring theme in fairy tales. It's evident in narratives of Disney films. This portrayal sends a message that physical appearance is an indicator of one's moral character, which can have profound effects on how children perceive themselves and others. Starting off with Snow White is one of the many fairy tales that embodies the beauty of good and slash the ugliness of evil. Dick Tonme. Snow White herself is described as the fairest of them all, with skin as white as snow and lips as red as blood and hair as black as ebony. Her beauty is not just a physical attribute, but also a reflection of her pure and kind heart. The evil queen, in contrast, is consumed by jealousy and vanity, her moral corruption mirrored by her transformation into an old hag as she attempts to kill Snow White. The message conveyed to children through Snow White and other fairy tales is clear. Beauty is a synonymous with goodness and ugliness with evil. This narrative is reinforced by the physical transformation of characters to match their moral alignment. The evil queen descent into ugliness is a punishment for her wickedness, just as the beast's transformation is a consequence of his cruel heart. Moving on in the tale of Tangled, the character Rapunzel is celebrated for her striking looks and magical long blonde hair, with, which symbolize her purity and innocence. Unrecognized to her, she is a princess, reinforcing the trope that beauty is an inherent to those of noble birth. Mother Gothel, the antagonist, is initially portrayed as a relatively attractive, but this is a deceptive facade maintained by the magical properties of Rapunzel's hair. As the story unfolds, it's relieved that Mother Gothel's youth and beauty are ill-gotten, sustained only by the explosion of Rapunzel. When Rapunzel's hair is cut, serving the source of Gothel's artificial youth, her true age and ugliness are revealed. The transformation is rapid and dramatic, emphasizing the narrative that evil cannot sustain the illusion of beauty indefinitely. The film Tangled contributes to the ongoing conversation about the portrayal of good and evil in fairy tales. Rapunzel, as the protagonist, is depicted as beautiful, innocent, and ultimately a victim of Gothel's schemes. In contrast, Gothel's initial malevolence is mirrored by her external transformation into an aged and ugly figure once her true nature is exposed. This depiction reinforces the message that beauty is aligned with goodness and victimhood. While ugliness is a visual cue for evil and descent, it perpetuates the idea to be a princess, a symbol of positivity and aspiration. One must also embody traditional standards of beauty. Gothel's fate at the end of the film serves as a moral lesson that evil deeds will ultimately lead to downfall and loss of beauty, further entrenching the association between physical appearance and moral character. As a secondary source, both Grimm's version and Friedrich Schultz's version of Rapunzel tell us that Rapunzel's long blonde hair is what makes her beautiful. The main reason that Rapunzel was a popular princess was because of her hair. This has been said in multiple sources and Disney films as well. I would say that the portrayal of the long blonde hair shows a high level of beauty standards and how Rapunzel is only known to the beautiful due to her long hair. Moving on to the Sleeping Beauty, set the stage. The opening scenes of Sleeping Beauty set the stage for a narrative deeply rooted in the association of physical beauty with moral goodness. As a secondary source, it's amazing how complete is the delusion is it's amazing how complete is the delusion is goodness. The name of Aurora itself, meaning dawn, evokes the imaginary of light and purity, aligning with her character's portrayal as the quintessential good princess. The celebration of her birth and bestowing of gifts, particularly the gift of beauty, predestined for a life of goodness and adoration. The entrance of Maleficent sharply contrasts this bright beginning. Her dark attire, green face, and horned silhouette cast a literal and figurative shadow of the festives. The transformation of the environment in her presence from light to dark, from the joyous to the fearful, visually reinforced her role as an antagonist. The article beauty equals goodness encapsulates this dichotomy, suggesting that beauty is not only a aesthetic trait but also a marker of virtue. Conversely, those lacking the conventional beauty, like Maleficent, are not only seen as less desirable but also treated with disdain and suspicion. This stark contrast within the first 30 minutes of Sleeping Beauty exemplifies the pretty good, ugly bad trope. Aurora's gift of beauty is a symbolic of her inherent goodness, ensuring she is treated with kindness. Maleficent appearance, on the other hand, is a visual shorthand for her evil nature, justifying the negative treatment she receives. The narrative implies that the beauty is unnatural and commendable, while ugliness, especially when enhanced by a makeup or artificial means, is a sign of moral corruption. By embedding these messages in the fairy tale, audience, particularly children, are taught to equate physical attractiveness with positive traits, to view those who look different with suspicion. These perpetuates this perpetuates a superficial understanding of morality and worth, influencing social attitudes toward beauty and character. Finally, the story of Cinderella further illustrates the trope of beauty, equating to goodness and ugliness to evil. Cinderella, despite being subjected to the cruelty of stepmother and stepsisters, remains kind-hearted and hopeful. Disney portrays her as a beautiful, with a pure and clean heart, reinforcing the idea of her inner goodness is reflected in her outer appearance. Conversely, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsister, who inherits her father's wealth and treat her poorly, are depicted with an ugly and physical appearance. This portrayal suggests that the inner wickedness is manifested externally. They are adorned in the finest clothes and shoes, yet their actions towards Cinderella reveal their true nature. This narrative implies that their ugliness is a result of their evil deeds, creating a visual representation of their moral failing. The crucial moments when Cinderella fairy godmother appeared, transforming her into a vision of beauty with the finest dress, shoes, and jewelry, is symbolic. It's as if her inherent goodness is finally allowed to shine through, contrasting sharply with the darkness of her stepfamily's action. The message is clear. Cinderella's beauty is not just skin deep, it's a reflection of her virtuous character. The idea of making being beautiful equal to being a good person and ugly as being evil has been forced upon us from the very beginning of our childhood. What message are we sending out to viewers of fairy tales, typically children? Fairy tales are introduced to children at a very young age. As we observe closely, all the Disney princesses are painted to be slim and pretty and adorned with beautiful clothing and bright colors, while on the other hand, the villains are typically fat, ugly, adorned in dark colors of clothing, or they would have been given a horn to top it off. In the article, we see references being made to one of the most obvious fairy tales focused on the importance of beauty is Beauty and the Beast. In this classic fairy tale, a prince was stripped of his beauty and transformed into a beast to match his ugly heart. These stories, while enchanting, perpetuate a simplistic view of morality that can influence young minds to equate physical traits with characters. It's important to critically examine these narratives and consider the impact they have on social perspectives of beauty and worth. By discussing and challenging these stereotypes, we can encourage a more inclusive understanding that recognizes the value of individuals beyond their appearance.